Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated will be filming, recording, and photographing this event for use in Delta promotional videos, photography, advertisements, social media platforms, web pages, and other future Delta events as the case may be. Via continued participation in and by continuing to remain logged into this event, hereby acknowledges that participant may be photographed, filmed, or otherwise recorded while on the premises of the event. Grants Delta, its successors, assigns, and licensees irrevocable consent to include participants' name, likeness, photographic image, mannerisms, and voice or other recording in the production or for exploitation for any purpose whatsoever in any and all media now known or hereafter devised throughout the universe in perpetuity without compensation and or credit. Represents, warrants, and agrees that Delta holds and shall forever hold all display, publication, and ownership rights, licenses, and privileges to any and all media, whether in law or in equity, which may be ascertained, registered, or in any way utilized with respect thereto, and waives, releases, and transfer, as the case may be, any and all such rights, whether in law or equity, as may be necessary or required to effectuate Delta's establishment of ownership. Participant further agrees to abide by and comply with any and all terms of use and or additional participation rules as applicable and specified during relevant sections of the program, and acknowledges, understands, and agrees that violation of such participation rules shall result in legal recourse and disciplinary action.
Got it. But now, when it really started getting to the meat of the conversation is that it all like affected us. You know, what was surprising was the fact that once we started getting into the nitty gritty of it, really started talking through, you could see because he had a presentation about like how, you know, dealing with anxiety, what anxiety could look like, you know, what could like depression look like, what could these things, mental health look like for you. And I could see in everyone's eyes, like we all had like our gears turned. We're like, I kind of get that. I kind of see that. I kind of relate to that. Mm-hmm. And so what really stood out with that event was the fact that when we created that safe space, I think we all had the realization like, oh, so we're all like going through it. So this isn't something just like to us, you know what I'm saying? This is just something to you. You don't feel so alone. And it did help a whole lot for me personally, a lot that, because it definitely does feel like you're doing this alone. You know, it definitely feels like, oh, maybe it's just me, and you're taught like, I kind of got to, you know, suck it up. I kind of got to keep pushing. But the fact that we created that environment, and the fact that we were all felt just like, you know, like safe enough to share our experiences. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I want to touch on that note a little bit. I think what kind of created this they created this safe space for allow us to really talk about our like well-being and our mental health was the fact, for me personally, was the fact that I saw people who were going through similar challenges and similar obstacles as me. At first, it was like, you know, I'm gonna sit here, I'm gonna learn these mechanisms, participate, and I'm gonna get through this event. But then once people started opening up and kind of just saying, yeah, this is kind of some of the challenges I'm facing, I was like, hold up, like I'm facing these same challenges. And it really felt good to know that somebody else was there with me. And it wasn't just like I'm doing this alone. I'm by myself, kind of like you said, Tian. So yeah, thank you so much. Michael, do you have anything for?
Yeah, during that time, I think also because it was a particular time that semester when everyone kind of feeling the weight of just pressure of like, you know, the possibilities of like how the semester is going to conclude and everything. We're just kind of dealing with ramifications like midterms already passed and all that stuff. So we're still like, you know, kind of questioning like, are we even taking better care of ourselves? Help, like, you know, we didn't even, you know, reach out to each other to that meeting of like, hey, I haven't seen you guys in a minute, knowing are you okay? But obviously there's also an eternal thing. I think as men, we're not really, the obstacles we face, one of them is big, is that we want to suffer in silence sometimes, and I really want to admit that, especially when it comes to us as Black men, because it's like on this campus, we might be dealing with any certain type of things, especially us as seniors. We're dealing with a bunch of stuff like, do I, what's my job going to be? What's my purpose in life after I'm going to be done? And, all the other things that, am I gonna, if I fail this class, I'm gonna disappoint my family, especially being a first generation college student, stuff like that, dealing with finances, still paying with no college, tuition, or even just paying your own bills. Are you eating a full meal? Are you getting enough rest? Those things that feel like us as men, we feel like we just must endure. But again, it's also a thing about practicing a thing that we really don't talk about, which is self-compassion. We don't kind of give ourselves enough grace that that we are doing a tremendous task, just being college one, but also just doing the things we in terms of achieving this goal, in terms of our degree and everything in school. And there's a lot of things that I think in media don't really want to perpetuate that, thinking that we have to be a certain way to endure. We don't have to actually share our emotions as men, actually be vulnerable with each other. And then if anything, with that particular event, is basically what I really needed, and I felt we all needed at that moment. So yeah, that was really one of my highlights of this whole semester, actually.
Yeah, and honestly was. And thank you so much, because I think you're going to lead me into my next point. You talked a lot about the obstacles that we were facing, but throughout our whole college experience, we faced obstacles. So what were some of these obstacles that really affected your overall mental well-being from freshman year up until now being a senior?
So for one, and I can say this now, kind of looking back how the beginning of it, one, you had to deal with the culture shock of okay, now you're on your own. You're dealing with the pressures of okay, you're first generation college student. You're also dealing with it's hey, you've been balancing the scheduling of friend groups, the environments of people you want to be with, deciding even what you want to do with your major, because most majority of college students, when they come in, they're going to switch. And now you're thinking well, I had this whole idea in high school, I was going to be this engineering degree, whatever, but then I'm here I am my first semester and you're failing. So it's it was dealing with that type of dynamic of okay, oh my God, what am I gonna do? And then and this also comes with anxiety, where anxiety is it creates terms of false narratives in your head, thinking that okay, you're immediately going to worst case scenario. Because you always for some of you, I'm not speaking just on myself. For some people, you might have been coming from oh well, I was in the National Honor Society, I was top of my class in high school. Here I am failing my first semester of college. What type of failure I am. So it's dealing with that sense of thought in yourself, that negative thinking of okay, and it's only your first semester. But then also knowing your environments, knowing that as a freshman, you're going to be targeted, in terms of in the college setting, and people, not everybody's going to be for your benefit, and for where some cases people can be for your detriment, because they're just trying to take things from you. And whether for some people where they learn that the easy way or the hard way, it takes time to remove themselves from those environments so they can actually now practice productive habits and behaviors for them that's actually benefiting their path through college. Because again, it's idea of college, you're thinking oh, everyone's your friend, everyone's nice, all this stuff like that. And then we like to learn the hard way that, so some experiences we have to heal from later in our junior or senior year or whatever. But yeah, those were some of those things, dealing with even, again, just knowing what I wanted to do with my life, sense of purpose, because we have this idea of a man doesn't have a purpose, is a lost man. And, as we're about to, graduate, you're thinking what am I going to do with my life and everything, relationships, what I, going through things with not really communicating much with your family while you're in college. I forget to call my mom sometimes, and then that dynamic gets hey mom, I'm sorry, whatever. And then she she never been to college, so she would understand does he not love me? Why are you calling me? Hello. So and again, it just took time again just for me to actually deal with those things every single semester, every single year. And obviously I said made some mistakes of not prioritizing those things, and I actually thought that mental health was a priority. So that was my biggest obstacle, because even especially coming from a family, especially if it was a religious family, African family, whatever, oh, you can just pray away and and all that stuff here, and and I get it, but also it can be a thing where you need to get some clinical help sometimes, and actually get actual skills to benefit and change some patterns behavior that's not benefiting you. So yeah, those are things I felt that were really obstacles for me.
No, and I definitely feel you with those obstacles. I know for me personally, like since freshman year, one of my biggest obstacles, I came to Mason with the idea that I'm coming to really discover myself, really prove to my family, prove to everybody that I can make it, that I really did this. Because in the day, kind of like what you said, Michael, I was that student that was president of NHS, National Honor Society. I was heavily involved on school. I was president of my school time. And I wanted to just prove that this wasn't something that I can do in a space where everybody knows me, where I've grown up with these people. I wanted to really prove the fact that, man, I can take care of myself. I can really be successful on my own. And I think for me, my biggest obstacle was that kind of mind of it, because I kind of wanted to prove to everybody that I could make it, that I could do this. It kind of became a thing where, like, when I needed help, I wouldn't always ask for it. When I got hit by challenges, I wouldn't know what to do, because these are challenges I was facing. Kind of like Michael said, like coming in an area where in high school, great academically, and then coming to college and not really being able to understand that you're now in college. Like, these classes aren't the same as when you're in high school. You're really having to like learn this material by yourself at the pace that your professor gives you. I just couldn't always accept the fact that, I would make mistakes, slip ups. I'd maybe forget to do homework, or maybe I didn't do as good as I wanted to. So for me personally, it really became a struggle of me trying to prove myself, but also not trying to beat myself up at the same time. Because like, my mom, she'd call me, she'd be like, Solomon, it's been 2 weeks since I last heard from you. I'm still alive. And I'd be like, I know, Mom, I'm so sorry. But I'm like, I got caught up with all this work. I was doing X, Y, and Z. I was doing all of this stuff because, I'm really trying to prove myself and just prove that I really got this. I can handle this college. I'm the first family to be put in this position. And with that, I'm very grateful. But one thing I've really realized is there's a lot of pressure that comes with that. And not even pressure from my family saying, you have to succeed, you have to do this. Because honestly, I know deep down that I've succeeded to them. The fact that I'm in this space, the fact that I am doing what I'm doing right now is a big succession to my family. But at the end of the day, what comes with that is me knowing how much time, how much effort, how much money, how much they've really invested into me getting here. And I just don't want that to feel like a waste on any chance that they have, because I just feel like that'd be very disrespectful to the people who work so hard to put me in the place that I am. So to make sure that isn't being taken for granted, always make sure that I show out above and beyond. And when that doesn't happen, that's where that pressure comes. And that's when I'm like, am I doing the right decision? Am I going down the right path? And I really get frustrated. And one thing I find funny is my mom's always the best. I don't know how. And even as far as I am right now, being 87 miles away, they still know best. She'll call me right when I need us, and she'll be like, hey, she'll be like, how you doing? That's the first thing she'll say is, how you doing? And it turns from a conversation of me really trying to keep my guard up to her already what's going on. She's like, you need some grocery money, you need this. And I'm like, no, I'm good. And she's like, no, I'm going to give you this, even if you don't need it. If you don't use it, fine. But if you do, I'm happy to help. And that connection really was something that really helped me out. And it really helped me understand that while, yes, she wants me to be successful in this area, by no means does she expect me to do this all by myself. I have people who are here to support me and here to help me out. With that, I still struggle with that obstacle, because I know that she has her own life she's living. She's working a full-time job. She's trying her best to, buy her house, has to do, go back through college. So I know that she has her own things to do. So my goal is always really reaching out and asking for help when it is needed. And that's kind of what I faced for these 4 years through college, and something that a lot of other also face. A lot of college students, they kind of feel like once they're in this position that they have to prove themselves to peers, to their family. So when they don't always ask for that help. So yeah.
That's what's up. Well, that was quite beautiful, Brother Fair. No, so I'm gonna get mine and we're gonna get into some of these questions because we got some juicy questions. But So I came in my freshman year was COVID, was fall 20, right? So graduating during the pandemic in high school, got my grab and go diploma, and then here I am in Mason virtually, right? I spent my first semester online pretty much at home. And taking online classes at home is not like it really isn't like good to your mental health like at all. That was, I will say, by far that was like mental health wise in college, the lowest point was freshman year. And a lot of people I say can relate to that as well. Whether it's virtual or in person, it very much is, as Solomon said, that culture shock. But for me, I know I came in as a mechanical engineer, and my sister, who graduated before me, from University of Maryland, Baltimore County, as a mechanical engineer, I was doing the same major at the time. And the biggest push was, you're a minority in STEM. You have to, live up to it, right? You have to just go through the motions, and all the other stuff. But I just wouldn't get it, right? Like I came in with the expectation of, okay, cool, you're gonna come in, you gonna do your thing, and you're gonna get out. You're gonna struggle here and there. But for my parents, especially, one of the things that for me as an out-of-state student, it was like, please do not fail these classes. We don't want to go because we can barely afford you going to school now. For you to retake some of these classes, you got to really play moves right. And so that kind of expectation, it does, as some say, really does get to you. It truly does do something to you. And then you have a lot of students where it's like, when you're doing this, you feel like it's the end all be all, right? As a freshman, your vision is so tunneled through that you're like, dang, I was doing good in high school and I'm doing these classes, I can't just sit in class and absorb it like I would normally. But also you're like very much, dang, if I fail this one class, you start going through like so many like motions, right? I will say that's the first time I ever like experienced like anxiety, like a panic attack, for example, because like, dang, if I fail chemistry, I can't do this, I can't do that, I'm set behind already. So maybe college just isn't for me. And then you just end up dropping out your first year. And you see that those cases really come up over and over again. And so it's like, how do you stay sane? And I will say my mom definitely put me through. She's like, nah, just don't give up now. Don't throw in the towel now. Don't transfer. Don't anything. Just wait, just wait, really, but she was always there for me in the sense where she's like, okay, what can I do for you? What can I do for you? It wasn't just, oh, just suffer and wait, work through the pain. It was very much like, no, we gonna get through this. But don't throw it in, And so I will say the saving grace for me on campus was Sigma, because they took me in under my wing my freshman year. And I was like, look, all my friends are having fun at Howard and NCAT, and here I am. I'm like, dang, all right. So I'm sitting in my room at George Mason University, like, all right, what do I do? And I will say joining Sigma was part of my ambition in the sense where it's like, I had this expectation put on me to be like, okay, when you get to college, you got to hit the ground running. You got to start collecting these accolades now, start young. And at first I was like, okay, cool, this is cool, right? And then halfway through in my sophomore and junior, I'm realizing, dang, I did a lot of that. But was I really living through my college experience, right? Like, was I having the fun? Like, was I taking pleasure in my work, right? And I do see that placed a whole lot on me where it's like, dang, I'm doing a lot of this and doing a lot of that. Okay, I got into the honors college, cool. Or I'm in an honor society, that's cool. And doing all that. But at the end of the day, it's still the stresses I got to live with going through that. And so I want to get into some of these questions real quick. So
quick question, Brother Fraser, before you do, because you kind of because you kind of pointed on a little bit before, because I don't want to just talk about our obstacles without leading into our road of success and like prioritizing that mental health. And you kind of touched on it a little bit when you were talking near the end, how you talked about how you had these successful events, all these successions happening in life, and how you were achieving such great things, but you weren't taking that time to really appreciate the work that you were doing. And I think that's something that's very important when this path to success. It's not always just about the work that you're putting in, but also making sure that you take that time to reflect and really enjoy and really look at what you just did, because that was one of my biggest issues on the campus. I wanted to hit the ground running, just like you. I wanted to get involved. I wanted to get a sense of this community, not being from Nova. But the organizations I got involved in, I started to quickly realize while I was doing much work for the community, I felt very disconnected from the community. people I was here intended to help, I knew nothing about. I knew no names. I knew no story behind these people. And it affected my mental health because I'm like, I'm doing all this great stuff, but I'm not getting a I really want to with this community. I'm not really getting to identify and getting to really within this community. And once I joined NAACP, once I joined Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, and I found people who were me, who were really showing me the door, I had like mentors this door to really express, these are the people, these are the community, introduce me to like everybody I need to know. I really started to get that feeling. I really, that's within the work that I was doing. And it feels really good because times I feel like as leaders, you know, we're so worried about getting things done, making sure we have that checklist checked, moved on, that we don't really consider the impact of what we're actually doing. And that's like sometimes for the greater good or even in the worst case scenarios, but we really don't understand the impact that our work has and the volume that our voice speaks. And I think that was one of my biggest strengths that I've recently discovered, that as a leader, I make a huge impact, and that impact really makes me feel good to know that I can do this event and afterwards I just better the lives of 10 people within my community, 5 members, 25, no matter the number. I still have that glory because I just know I'm out here and I'm helping out and I'm really getting to know my members. I'm not just doing this to check a box and say, hey, Mason, we're helping out. No, I'm really doing this because I care about these individuals. So for me personally, the minute I started prioritizing my mental health and I really started changing my crowd, and I found people who were like me, people who really wanted to better the community and get to know everybody, that's when I saw that path to success become a lot brighter for me personally. So yeah.
Period. That's what's up. That's what's up. All right. And so when it comes to the questions, we got my man's Iman. I'll say, good to see you, dog. Good to see you. But he asked, what stigmas did you feel were placed on you as a Black man entering a predominantly white space as both a student and a community leader? And how did you go about debunking those ideologies of John Henryism as it relates to an invincible Black man who can sustain any and everything?
First thing I would like to say, Iman, I love that you're using those Black psychology phrases that we're learning in class.
Thank you.
I was gonna say.
Thank you.
Yeah. I was like,
Yes. But all honesty, when it came down to it, some of the stigmas that like me personally I face. So I'm a little taller. I'm a little bit on the big side, and being at Mason, being around a lot of predominantly white people, I always want to make sure and ensure that I'm not coming across as aggressive in any form, that I'm always being seen as very friendly. And it's funny because that actually where I got like kind of my nickname from, Sully. It was like, you know, a friendlier form of my name, and people were like, yeah, like kind of Monster from Monster Inc. because you're so big, but you're just so like friendly. But that was really my biggest thing, was making sure that I was a professional and friendly social individual. And I think the minute I kind of realized where that placed me within of being surrounded by predominantly white people, where it's like, okay, y'all do whatever y'all want to me, but y'all are expecting me to be friendly. Y'all are expecting me to continue this up, to not have a grudge, to not say anything, to not speak. I kind of was just like, this is unfair to myself, because it did my well-being and my mental health. Because if I'm always walking on eggshells, if I'm always speak my truth, how can I live my life? How am I being true to myself? I really kind of had to take a step back and really say, no, I'm sorry, but this is me, and y'all take it or leave it. I'll some growth between myself and the work that I was. So yeah.
Yeah, on that end, what you're talking about is like the stigmas that I don't have a sense of like, or opportunity to speak up. So it's like in the moment when I address an area of concern, then that I'm seen as aggressive, right? Even like in certain spaces that, you know, where I might, you know, my mental journey that like, and it's just me just being transparent, where it like led to groups that kind of led to me, being in states of like where like I might have been in a position where I was like causing self-harm on myself, right? Because of that environment where they're conditioning me, where it's like, okay, well, I feel like I'm not even good enough to address this, this concern I'm feeling, whatever. So I should just suffer, right? And again, that's the thing where it's like, uh, when we're going through some traumatic experiences, even on this campus, is like, again, it's not the fact that I don't think it's also not being heard. It's not being like validated in a sense, where it's like, hey, this is happening to me. It's like you're not, really acknowledging that this is happening to me. And it comes to a point where if you're in certain environments, they tend to gaslight you, questioning like, oh no, this is not what you're feeling. This is X, Y, Z, right? But it's also, I think in mental health awareness is also in terms of increasing in self-awareness, knowing that, hey, I'm in an environment that's not benefiting me, and I have to remove myself from people that want to attach a stigma onto me, and actually being groups that actually acknowledges my experiences, and and to a point where I'm being around other people that where they could relate to it. Again, another one is also with therapy. It's like, if you can go into CAPS, it's like there's not really a lot of Black people I know that go to utilizing these services. And so when in our event, when I saw we had one of the professionals that he was African American, like I want to say I was kind of put back, stuck back from it, like, oh wait, he's when we like he I didn't know he was here on campus. But even then, when you go to the office, like there's not really a lot of Black people in there. And I think it's also not a sense of fear, but also a sense of like saying like, hey, if I go here, then I'm acknowledging or admitting that, hey, something's wrong with me, and I think that's like, I remember you and Solomon, you and I were talking about like how sometimes when us as people, we want to suffer in silence. We don't want to literally verbally say, I'm going through something, because then when we verbally say it, then it makes
It's
it
true
real.
then.
So it's like, again,
Oh,
so that's the thing where I think people kind of wrestle with too, a lot. So I think again, it's not, we're not T1000s in term, not robots and stuff. We're actually human beings, and I just want to kind of acknowledge that on the men's side too, is that, it's not way, you're not less of a man because you go to therapy. If anything, you're going to an environment that's even strengthening your abilities to be an even stronger man, because then you have, skills and that you're able to utilize in your own personal relationship, even to another man, but also just with people. So I think that with that, I think again, that's just certain stigmas that, well, to amend your question, that I feel like we kind of experience as students, especially also as community leaders, because then you have a responsibility on behalf of the general body of folks, so even more pressure.
Mm, mm. That's what's up. That's what's up. All right. I want to get into the next questions from Tamika. So Nakia, oh my God.
Tamika is Tamika Nicole.
Tamika. I want to make sure I was going to say Mike. I was like, that's
my soon to be fiance. He's also a Delta.
Cool.
But anyway.
Okay, cool. No, I don't want to be a substitute teacher and start mispronouncing names.
It's okay.
So cool. So, what are some skills you learn to use to manage your mental health while in college? So I will say for that one, when it comes to managing your mental health, I will say the biggest thing that I found to be very beneficial was definitely the community of people. It definitely feels a whole lot better when you're not going through it alone, whether it be you're like just a Black student on campus, you're just a student period, or if you're like in a class with people, right? Especially like, there's a difference between like I'm in a class by myself and I'm in a class with other people and we're talking, we're all going through this, right? Like it hits different when you get your exam grade back and you're like, dang, I did that bad. Or you see the group me blowing up and everyone's saying, ain't nobody passed this exam, right? Like there is that difference, right? But also it definitely helps me personally when it's like, okay, if I see someone else struggling, if I know I'm doing okay in that precise moment, I can help them out. And I expect the same thing in return. That has always been one of the best things for me personally, as like someone who has to do a lot, has to go through a lot. It really helps out. Like just knowing that there's someone there, with your back, they got you. And yeah, so I will say that for me, definitely being with other people has helped out so much. And
Mhm.
also making sure you pick up like a hobby or something too. I will say that having a hobby in
Yeah.
college, that too, yeah, that helps out immensely.
It's crazy because I was just about to speak on that fact. Because before I came to college, I was in the band. I played the tenor sax, the alto sax, and the euphonium. So I was all when it came to musical instruments. I have a love for music and a love for learning. So at the end of the day, when I came to college, I was like, I'm not going to be that person that shows up with this instrument to the dorm room, keeping everybody up or just making loud noises. I was like, I'm not bringing it. I'm not bringing my saxophone. I'm not going to do it. And slowly, like as the years went on, I find myself just waiting for breaks, just waiting to go back home so I could just have a moment to like not think, to just play my instrument. So you're definitely right, Brother Fraser, when you say finding like hobbies, things to do definitely helps out. And even like kind of like what you said earlier about like not feeling like you're alone in things, really beneficial. I know for me personally, this year, well, this semester, I've had one class, Black psychology, and in all honesty, I thought this class would be something for me to just, just learn about the mindset of Black people and how they're different all across the diaspora, and really just learn different psychology skills, how we kind of invented and like how we help this psychology move forward really throughout time. But what I slowly started like realizing was, no, we're forming like an actual in this class. It's like an actual family. Like I said, like some of them are here now. Iman, shout out, thank you so much. And we really each other, not just within this class, but throughout this class. When we were dealing with issues here on George Mason campus as a Black community, that was a room for us to kind of talk, like kind of inform people of what's going on amongst the community, to really gather our numbers, to really get information throughout. So in the day, like personally, I will say being able to talk to people in general, feeling like you always have somebody in your corner battling for you, whether it be academically, whether it be just somebody to text, you need something, that really was something that really benefited me.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. So one of the skills I think is too is also just to, um, not also have prioritizing having to remove myself from, I guess, whether it might be from social media or actually, taking a mental health day, knowing that, you have the resource to tell a professor, hey, I can't come in today. Not obviously not make that a pattern, but just also saying like, listen, I can't come in today. When it's also to a point of realizing skills like other areas of your life that that you improve upon that do have direct correlation to your mental health. Are you eating a full meal? Yes, we have a meal plan, and it's you might have 24-hour access, but you're not utilizing it. Again, are you actually getting good rest? Also not there's a lack of rest and over you oversleeping as well. That's still another thing too. Going to the gym, as well as like practicing that drinking water. Some of those things that I think that again we think it's all basic and it's oh yeah we heard this before, but really it's just one of the most small minute things again that just if you decrease that type of pattern then and be consistent with that, it does have effects to the body, because like if it's in the mind isn't right, the whole body isn't right. So it's like yeah, I think we have to remind ourselves on that. And also another thing too with terms of like making sure like having a list of not things or tasks that you have to do, because there's this sense of you being overwhelmed, right? And then once you start writing things down, things actually become a lot more smaller. Like right now where I am, right, like I have a history of panic attacks and anxiety and stuff like later in the saying this year. But now, saying by the grace of God that I had like, able to have resources able to benefit me through that. And now it's like when I'm writing things down, including my college career, like I now know like, hey, there's a lot of pressure. Like today, like yesterday, I was all day working on like my senior project, and managing a whole group of people of like 60 students, for our, our show next week. And then after that, it became really exhausted and realized I have, other tasks and stuff to do. But then looking at it, I still realized that when I wrote the things down, okay, I have enough time to take a nap. I have enough time to like, all right, I can do this like tomorrow morning. But even though days and days get closer, just realizing that it's just almost making sure what's the big picture. The big picture is that as much as like you might not get certain things or might not go your way, is not the end of the world. again, not immediately going to worst case scenario. And this is also another thing for parents too. I want to make sure is that not saying as students, giving your parents grace, but also parents giving their children grace as well, because this thing is like, you guys don't know. And I think that we have to acknowledge that as, a student, like we want to, like, how can you not understand what I'm going through? There is a gap between parents and children, what we're going through in college, especially if you've never been to college before. So I think that having the skill of actually listening in terms of what they're going through and just, hearing them out. Because it's also, I speak on behalf of just as a, as a child, to my mother and my father, it's like, you might be afraid if you tell them what's going on, they might go to worst case scenario, like, oh, okay, I'm coming there right now, blah, blah. And then you think, oh, I don't want to add pressure onto them. But at the same time, I still need to communicate what I'm going through. So again, just having practicing communication skills with your family, just saying, listen, I just want to talk right now what I'm going through. It doesn't mean I'm, this is the end of the world or anything. I just need to get this off my chest. Just that having a 20-second or 20-minute conversation, with your parent or phone call, whatever, it goes a long way. So again, I just kind of, ask on both parties, on children and also to parents, just increase in terms of listening skills on the opposite party, So yeah.
That's what's up. That's what's up. Quick note, I just want to say, Solomon, this whole time I did not know that you was that musically inclined. This whole time, I got my keyboard is right there. This whole time, we could have been. I think
we could have been.
That's a conversation after.
That's
a conversation after the call. So, so this is towards Michael, but this is towards pretty much everyone. So, Michael, you mentioned suffering in silence. What cues should we look for to identify when our young men are struggling, but not verbalizing their pain, so we can provide support and assistance?
One, this is actually a big thing for Black men, is hair. When they have not gotten a haircut in a long time, they might obviously, might think, oh, I'm just trying to do something new, whatever. Literally, it's the same thing as your neighbor not cutting their grass for 2 or 3 weeks in, and you're not checking like what's going on. You go in there, knock on the door. Hey, are you okay? You haven't cut your grass. It's the same thing as men. Like, I haven't gotten a haircut, right? I haven't even taken no care of myself. That's one simple thing. I know people think, oh no, whatever. It's actually, it goes a long way. Just getting a haircut can just change your self-esteem just for saying you're just taking care of yourself. One, also loss of weight. Again, I get going back to eating. It's just like, weight fluctuates between different people too, but just also just saying like, hey, are you okay? You just don't, you're not looking right, or just asking that, again, noticing when they have not responded, in terms of like, you might text them or communicate them or group chats, whatever. And then you see them being silent for like a long period of time. And it's like, hey, are you okay? What's going on? Again, it's not even the fact they might just be overwhelmed the amount of text messages they just get, and it's just like, I just can't respond right now. Just ask, and then maybe they're just waiting on somebody, not just a text them, just call them. Not there's a difference between just texting, looking, you see the message, but actually someone calling you, or if you know where they are, that dorm, just knock on the door, say, hey, are you okay? That's those simple things. So yeah, I think that then too is like noticing also if they seem a little bit pale or just like expressions on their faces and stuff. It's very thing I encourage people also look up I'm not saying YouTube videos, but also just other things of mental health, like signs of like a physical appearance. It doesn't go a long way, but also just their I guess also their what I'm trying to think of the word the way they communicate, like see how like they might joke around saying yeah, I'm all right, I'm just I mean, I don't know if I'm gonna wake up tomorrow, like stuff like just something like that, sense of like that dark humor or whatever. It's like, wait, what are you talking about? Like just certain things, those signs are obvious in the face, that people not really realize to go over their head. Their language, their the way they talk about themselves, the way it just, again, just those things. I feel like that's way certain things to just be mindful of.
And I think kind of just to also say one thing I think is we're so quick to do when we are having struggles, when we are having these, it's kind of just saying, oh, I'm all right. Like, I'll kind of like Michael said, I'll push through. I know personally, that's one of my famous ones. I'll push through. I'll be all right. I'll be all right. We really do need to open up more. We really do need to, on behalf of what is going on more. But one of my biggest things that I say is a big sign is when somebody really starts to retract themselves from things and conversations and spaces that they used to be in. I know for me personally, for example, my mom and I, we have it where every 2 weeks, I'll call her. Now, if I don't call her every 2 weeks, she kind of gets a feeling that, okay, he's stressed right now. He's going through, he must be going through a lot. I know how classes can be. I'm going to give him some space. Now, to her, space is a little bit different. You know, she'll shoot me a text message being like, hey, I just want you to know I'm thinking about you and I love you. If you need anything, I'm here. Now, if I don't text her back, she's calling. There's no and buts or anything about it. She is calling, and respectfully, I am answering that every time. Just because I know how my mom can get. She is very much mother bear. She is very much, you are my son. I want to, you are okay. I don't want to be in your business. I don't really care about your personal life. Well, she does, not to the fact where, you know, she's all up in my personal life, but she really wants her, I'm okay. And I think once we had that understanding of, I don't care what you do now, you are a grown man, you know, as long as you are living that you were raised on and you are not trying to be anybody, you are not doing things to be disappointed really within life about how you carry yourself, then I do not care what you do. But at the same time, I do care about your well-being. I do care about your overall encounter in life. So once I had that understanding of, okay, really at this point in life, she's not here to tell me whether or not I am doing right or I'm wrong, but really to make sure that I am okay with the decision that I am making within, and that I know that she supports me no matter what mistake I have. Really a huge like weight off my shoulders. And I felt like I could communicate to her. I felt like I could come to her whenever I needed. And it, for me personally, that was something that it took time for me to really understand. It took like a long time for me to get that understanding that I am an adult now, you know, she still sees, she does not see me as that young boy that I used to be anymore. She knows, and the relationship that we had, that we once had, no, Solomon, do not eat this coffee mug off this table. Take my, you know, my hair products and hide them in the middle of the room. It's gone. Here to tell me what's right and wrong, but to support me. So yeah.
That's what's up. That's what's up. I'll get my input then move on, so we're not taking up too much time. But I will say, for those kind of cues that suffer in silence, those are all really good points. One of the things that for me personally, and I will say, I will give kudos to a brother who isn't on the call, Marcus. He crossed with me in the spring of 2021. One of the things for me is like definitely like a look at social media activity, right? And for me, it's sort of like there's like two extremes when it comes to like Black men, right? Either they don't post for a little while and you're like, all right, well, I hope they're okay. What's going on? Or they post like 20 times in a day and you're like, all right, what's going on, right? Because it's like, no, there's always those two extremes where it's like, okay, hold up. There's something's not right here, right? And so it'll be like, for me, like one of the things is like, dang, when I'm really down is like, I don't really talk a lot. I really just like retreat and I really go back. And I will say I find myself very exhausted because I have to talk to a lot of people. Like every day I have to talk to a lot of people, whether it be for class, business, or like socially, right? Or like that's really what it comes down to, right? And I find myself like mentally like checking out a whole lot, you know, like mentally just like I'm done. I can't feel like responding, right? And so there'll be days where I get up and I'm like, dang, I really don't want to leave the bed, or dang, I have 50 unread messages that I have to answer to and I just can't. And
Right.
so, and instead of going like, dang, I should talk to someone, I just stop, right? And so I will say, when you have someone like that where they check in, you're like, okay, what's going on? Are you okay? You have that, but also, like as Michael said, calling them, right? I will say for a lot of like young people, a lot of people just in general, like if you have to talk a lot, if you feel like you have to like text a whole lot or you have to write out your feelings a whole lot, you don't do it, right? Like, well, for me, it's like, dang, I have to write 2 papers today. And I'm not gonna lie, I don't know if I can write out my feelings, right? And it's one of those toxic things where it's like, dang, like you need to grow out of that. But do you address that there? Do you like pick up the phone and call them saying, look, what's going on? Do you feel like talking, right? And I really think that does lead into the next question where we were asked, like as a parent, always trying to display and provide support to my son. Can you provide advice or suggestions on how I may approach him as he faces adversities and life challenges? And I'll answer that real quick and I'll go off to the two brothers. But when it comes to that, like when you, as a parent, trying to display, like we gave all the cues, like how do we analyze him suffering in silence? How can we help with that, you know? And I will say, as a parent, it definitely is one of the best things ever, where it's like, you know, I always have your back, or I'm always going to support you, right? Because as Solomon, he touched on a lot of the points when it came to like definitely just transitioning as like from like, you know, a child to like an adult and understanding my parents. You soon start to realize you're in this transition phase, like, dang, so maybe we do go through the same things. You know what I'm saying? Like, you start recognizing the, you know, growing pains of adulthood, but also you start, you know, like having that respect with your parent as well. Like you can have these conversations that isn't just so child to like parent, it really is just like adult to adult, right? And it definitely comes to there where it's like you start treating like, okay, you know, how are you doing? How are you going? You know, playing through there. And also don't even have to turn it in on them when it comes to, okay, so what are your plans for X, Y, and Z? You know, I've definitely seen plenty of fellow students when they're talking to their parents, they're like, I don't want to talk to them because, you know, I'm going through and I feel like I have to explain myself and I have to have these conversations. I feel like I'm not ready. So they just stop, right? And that definitely is like a slippery slope where it's like, dang, you kind of do need to talk about it with someone, right? And there is ways to go about it when it comes to, you know, talking to your child, where it's like, okay, how you get there, you know, you can, I will say my parents, they have that way where I'm like, I'm not going to talk about it with them. And then 5 minutes into the call, I'm like, yo, I gotta say this, right? And, you know, it definitely is like luring them out, right? Like luring them out of that shell that we tend to put up around ourselves. And it's not always the wisest thing, but I see Solomon, you like nod your head. You're like, yeah, I get that. So
yeah, because that's exactly how it is. And I think my mom, she's mastered that technique of being able to lure me out, because it's like when I'm going through what I go through here at college, like when I'm facing these challenges, I very much do have that mindset, kind of like you were saying, Tion, to kind of just shut off the world and to not want to communicate, to not want to talk. When it comes to my mom, because I will say, and as much as kids on our end, we hate saying this, moms do know us. Like, mom love being like, I know you best, or I know you best. And, you know, we love being like, nah, mom, I'm different. I'm a man now. I'm a man. I'm not the same, you know, but they do know us best. And when it comes down to it, because it's crazy, because I literally had a conversation like last week where I didn't feel like talking to her about what we were talking about. And was like, you know what? She was like, I know. She's like, I know you're going through it right now. I know you have a lot happening, you know, so I'm not going to push. I'm not going to pry. But I want you to know I love you, Solomon. I want you to know that I'm here to support you and I'm here to talk if you ever need anything. Just to hear that within that moment of, I love you. I know you don't want to talk, but when you want to, I am here to listen. It always gets me. It always gets me because it's the support that I need. It's a reassurance that I need. And it's just the fact that in the day, I do know that she cares. And I also know at the end of the day, tell her what it is that's bothering me, she's going to help out. And not in the fact, you know, physically, you know, help out or physically come over here and do what I need to do. But no, it's something that's going to calm me down and then allow me to really do the work that and more than 10 times out of 10, she'll tell me, why are you stressing this? After I express what's happening, it's always, Solomon, stressing this. Either she'll follow up with this, you see, and you did everything that you possibly could do. There's nothing to stress anymore. Everything that you had control of, you controlled. Now it's time to take a step back. Whatever happens, you at least know that you did your best, correct? And if the answer is yes, then she's like, then there you go. There's nothing more that anybody else can ask from you. You're not a magician. You can't pull something out of a hat magically. You can't do things miraculously. Like, if you tried your best, that's all that matters. And nobody can stop or say anything otherwise because you know the truth. And the minute she says stuff like that, the minute I get these conversations, it brings reassurance for the next time. It's all about consistently being there for these conversations, consistently just showing up, because I'm not there, if I'm not going to talk to her about one thing, I know for a fact the next thing I'm going to talk to her about, it's really just the fact that I know that she is really here to help out, and she's constantly keeping that line of communication open for us to have. She's not demanding it, but she's keeping it open on the floor. It's not like I feel like I'm forced to talk to her. It's more like I know she's available whenever I need throughout these hours of the day. So I'm gonna call her. So yeah.
Yeah, I think again is also for on men's side, one thing we also need to check is our pride. Again, it's like even as in a child's sense, it's like you're just too prideful, like at least just, saying like, Mom, I don't need this, Mom, I don't need that. Like I'm only child. So I can say that for me, I definitely experienced that, but now like obviously our relationship has matured, through that where it's like, hey, now like we're able to again practice how we communicate with each other. But again, just knowing that not saying the mothers always come with with saying with the good intentions, but you have to understand just like that when they're reaching out to you, there's just certain language, especially when you're speaking to a male, or like, how in terms of he just need that reassurance, but also he wants to know that he can stand on his own 2 feet. He at the end of the day, what makes you proud, and that's also like on another extent, like a father to a son, it's just like that's another thing where it's like reason why when mom always keep coming at us is like we feel like if we if we're acknowledging something that mom is saying or we're getting frustrated with her because like, oh, we feel like we can't stand as a man on our own 2 feet, or we can't or I can't handle this and I'm just a child, I'm not growing up, maturing, whatever like that. And it's not necessarily the case. He's just reaching out to you. So again, it's the same thing if you're just in a romantic relationship with your partner. Again, it's the same thing. It's just that like they're just only giving you words of affirmation or reassurance, like, hey, is everything okay? That's why I'm saying with my mom and just how it gets to the end of this, journey for me is just, again, she was definitely a pivotal part to it. And, and we had, highs and lows and stuff. But I think, again, what I mentioned before, for, from children and to the parent, and when they're going through college, like when the child's going through college, it's giving that other grace, again, cause I don't understand what's going on and you don't understand going on, as a parent. So I guess it's just like, just getting practice and keep practicing that. Also, just wanting to give them the open the space of just listening to them and just actually just hearing them out. And also even to apologize, because you might do things unintentionally to your child where it's like, well, I don't want to talk to you because you did this to me, X, Y, Z. Again, just apologize. Hey, listen, if I did that to you, I'm sorry. Hey, Mom, I'm sorry I have not communicated with you. Because that is a form of, you have to say, it ain't disrespecting your parent knowing what they have done and they're paying for you to be here, so just say, hey, Mom, hey, I'm sorry I didn't communicate with you, and that's it. And just then I think that's okay. We just keep practicing those type of positive behaviors.
I love that. And so we got another one from Iman real quick. And so he says, I've been reading a book on and off called Male versus Man, and author Dondre Whitfield had this quote that sticks with me up. He maintains that every man is like the firefighter of his home. He is responsible for putting out fires, which creates more calm and avoids a towering inferno. I'm wondering, in what ways have you gentlemen found yourself putting out fires to create calmness for yourselves personally and as it relates to others around you? That hit home. Not gonna lie, but Michael, you seem like you on it, so I'm gonna let you answer first real quick. Go ahead.
Well, I want to speak on behalf of my chapter here, but I'm usually the person that kind of reach out to everyone and say like, hey, are you okay? And I'm the person that kind of like hears everybody out and try to, understand their perspective of what they're going through and try to give some type of feedback I can. Because I know, in any sense, some of us can be hard headed and just, or at least just like, don't want to be heard out. And, and so I think with that is that, especially even just as in a relationship, group dynamic, as as just brothers in an organization, obviously there might be conflict that might arise and stuff like that. And so for me, I just try to come in there and I just say, hey, listen, what's going on? Let me hear you out. And most of the conflict's really just a misunderstanding, so that's what I try to, from my end, I try to do when I'm in friend groups that obviously that's affecting other people's, mental health and mindset and everything and everything like that. So I try to, that's one of the things I do try to, create calmness, is just give space of like, hey, let's just hear everybody out, and also just, just to seek understanding instead of trying to going back and forth with each other just to be right.
Yeah. And I'm actually happy you asked that question. Because like I said a little bit earlier, especially as a Black student leader here on campus, we've been on issues, we've been talking with administrations, and we've just kind of really had been work done. And with that has been a lot of me on the NAACP side, having discussions with certain other organizations and other administrations, rekindle that relationship between them and the Black community. I find myself a lot being the mediator between me, people, and kind of just making sure that discussions that we're having are that we're really going for the bigger picture. And it's not like we're here attacking one another, or it's really a huge argument. So with that, kind of how Michael said, it's really a lot of hearing everybody out. It's really a lot of being able to listen without wanting to respond based off of like emotion. Listening to actually listen, being there to actually wanting to be there, and really taking that moment in and seeing somebody for not just what they've done, but for their feelings and more than what they want to show off. Because in the day, sometimes somebody's actions in their mind could have meant well, could have meant good, but in the day, it did harm. And by no means am I saying we have to be the bigger person and accept, oh, well, they meant good, so, we'll let it be. No, still hold them accountable, but be able to do it at a way where you're not hurting anybody. You're like, hey, you did this wrong. I want to let you know, even though you had good intentions, you still did this wrong. You still hurt X, you still hurt these people right here. But in the day, if you just apologize, find a plan to move past this.
That's what's up. That's what's up. And so I will say, as saying for that, when it comes to feeling like you have to be the firefighter, that did hit home a whole lot, because I think, Solomon, you touched on this a little earlier, but like when it comes to like us as like, where it's like Black men, but also as like bigger, like Black men, like physically there, I've come to learn, like, if you raise your voice, or if you like you do simple things like raising your voice, whether it be out of like, I am passionate or I am like fierce, you cannot do that. If you can, and people will listen, but will they do it in the way that you kind of want them to listen to you, right? Not in a way of like, oh, like I'm hearing out his feelings. It's like And so one of the things, even just as like a relationship, whether it be like with a spouse or whether it be with like your friends or anything, it's like you feel like you do have to like, okay, I got to get a grip of myself. I got to make sure, okay, you know what, if I'm going to express my feelings, whether I'm upset or whether it be they're upset, I'm not going to break, right? I'm not going to do that, right? I have to like get a grip, right? And there is like where it's like, it does kind of, you feel like you have to bite the bullet a whole lot, because there would be times like, dang, I am kind of like passionate about this, but I know my passion can come across as like animosity or like, anything else. So you don't want to have mistaken with that. And so, but it does feel like a whole lot of the times where it's like, you feel like, okay, if I could just if I can express my emotions in a healthy way, if I can do all those things, it can help. It goes a whole lot, it can definitely help out a whole lot. Just being, having a conversation, having a dialogue, because we can get so caught up in the whole, okay, if I start going off, then nothing's about to get solved, right. And so just dealing with that. But I do think that there is some truth to that, where it's like you have to like, put out fires, you have to do a whole lot of calm. And even then it has to be like, whether it be in front of everyone or it has to be, to the side, where it's like, all right, if we're having like a group discussion and, stuff goes sideways, like, all right, then let me talk to you on the side. Let me talk to you on the side. All right, let me start, doing my investigative work, it definitely starts going through that. But I believe that's it for the questions. So I'll turn it back to you.
Okay. And I just want to say thank you all so much for allowing us to have our moment and to talk about this experience. And it means a lot to the Road Talk to being able to be back again. And with that being said, I will be giving it back to the president of Fairfax County Alumni Chapter, Helena Fisher. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much. So to our moderator and panelists, Solomon, Tayon, and Michael, thank you so much for sharing your experiences and insights with us today. Each of you demonstrated very well how you navigate obstacles not only young men face, but all of us face. Thank you for talking about how you prioritize your good health, mental health along with your paths to success. You gave us something to think about, and hopefully the information resonates with all of our participants. I want to thank our Embody Committee and of the Fairfax County Alumni Chapter and the chairs for this committee for calling attention to this very important topic of mental health. And I want to thank our participants for taking the time to join us on a Saturday morning. We truly appreciate you, and please remember to complete the survey, because your responses will help us with our effective programs that we have, especially for young men and the parents of those young men. I also want you to know that we have a $500 book scholarship for graduating males from high school that can help with college textbooks. So seniors, please, please, please complete the application, and it is due by February 28, 2023. And I want to ask someone from our panel, how much do books cost for college?
A lot.
A lot.
A lot if you aren't
I was about to say,
the ways of finessing.
I was about to say one of my books cost a good it was like 300 because it was like 3 books for one class. So they
Okay.
can be very expensive, honestly.
All right, so we have money to help you with your textbooks. So please, college seniors, apply for our scholarship. Now, I believe that the scholarship application has been put into the chat along with the evaluation. So please complete those. So click on those links now. If you all would like to learn more about the Fairfax County Alumni Chapter, Delta Sigma Theta, please, please, please look us up on our website, fcacdst.org, or connect with us on social media. And with that, unless we have anything else from our committee chairs, we'd like to thank you for your participation today. Sarah Smith or Sarah Williams, do we have anything else?
No, thank you, Soar President.
All right. Well, thank you all, and have a great Saturday afternoon. Thank you all for your participation. Goodbye.